So I wanted to follow up on a couple of points from yesterday's vlog where we were exploring the Zeus, looking at some Tactica. And of course, Battletech being Battletech, there's different variants of the mechs, official, unofficial. And as a mech warrior, as a mech commander, you can always pull off some part and put on another part. So there was this idea of exploring the Zeus and upgrading it to a true assault mech. Essentially taking that jump. One of the pieces, of course, upgrading the LRM pack, downgrading the engine, upgrade the LRM pack, and upgrade the large laser to a PPC. And this leads into this vlog, something that I've noticed. I'm looking for the right word. It's not quite playstyle, but there's a flow with certain mechs. And initially that flow is hard to see because naturally you're immersed in turn by turn. But over the course of a game, over the course of many games, you begin to understand the operation, the flow of certain machines. Discounting, of course, halfway through the game, you get a leg blown off or you get your head blown off or something wacky happens. It is Battletech. If there's no interruption, you start noticing. And I was thinking back to the times that I've fielded a Zeus, on and off, but also a T-Bolt, also looking at other mechs that have large lasers, heavy and assault class mechs that have large lasers versus PPCs. And I noticed the flow was different. And that's what I wanted to kind of push out here to illustrate, but also to kind of ask that question, other mechs in your collection or that you've played with that have this kind of interesting flow dynamic. Okay, jumping in, the framework. And I am generalizing a little bit here. There are heavies and assaults, as there are with all different mech weight classes that kind of break the mold. But to get that framework, we kind of box things in and put everything together. I have a lot of tonnage. I have a lot of internal slots. I can mount a lot more weapons. I can mount more heat sinks. But one of the major themes of the Inner Sphere and Lost Tech, before we get to clans and clan restoration of Inner Sphere mechs, Star League completely aside for a moment, this idea of you mount more weapons, but you're never really going to be able to keep up with the heat. So as you move into heavies and assaults, you can bring a lot more weapons to bear at different ranges, at one focused range, deal a lot of damage. But the heat is a major, major factor, and you need to kind of manage that. So classic examples, the Warhammer, the Marauder, dual PPC mechs, you'll kind of cook off two, cook off one, cook off two, cook off one, or you'll do 2, 1, 1 to build the heat depending on the range. You're kind of just, same with the Awesome. You're firing at different levels with it to try and manage that heat. And when, of course, Alpha Strike, or if you have to push the heat, you can. So the flow of the battle with PPCs, and I love PPCs. I mean, number one weapon for me is autocannon 20. Before we even do the modifiers, I roll up on you, I'm in range, I'm going to take that shot. I need 12s to hit. You're getting nervous. You're feeling it, right? I mean, that autocannon 20, is this the time Fritz rolls 12s? I don't know. It's Battletech. Look, anything can happen. And I've got 3 or 4 autocannons, and I've got demolishers, and I've got that Karnov that opened up the bay doors. That autocannon 20 drops out. I mean, I'm bringing a lot at you. Irby, AC-20, Duke of Death, right? All these things kind of pushing forward. But I have to say tactically, and this is hard, big guns never tire, tactically the PPC is one of the most damaging weapons in the game, Inner Sphere, before we get into clan stuff, because it's got the range, it's got the damage, it's consistent, but the trade-off is the heat. The trade-off is the heat. You jump down to a large laser, essentially, 10-10, 8-8, you're losing a little bit of damage, you're swapping heat. But what I've noticed initially, so this leads to the flow, looking at the Zeus stock, looking at the T-Bolt stock, and I regularly play the T-Bolt, my first reaction early on was like, these are heavies, these are assault mechs, these are kings of the battlefield. I want the PPC. I want the Battlemaster configuration, right? Makes sense. But in exploring that, what I noticed is it's crippling your heat. It really is. It's crippling your heat. And what's interesting is, on a side note, leading into the flow of the game, heavies and assaults tend to move more than other mechs because given the speed, like a light mech, light mech you survive by not getting shot at, but also by running and keeping range. But I can run up to a key position like my Valkyrie in low battle value games where I want to just kind of harass or lay down some LRM indirect fire. I mean, I know it's only one. I know it's a light mech, but we're talking real low battle value, trying to get that rack on the table. The Valk is pretty fast. There's times I move up, I get into position, I'm not moving, no movement modifiers, and I'm shooting. But with a heavier and assault, because they are slower, because they are trying to react, because I'm trying to really push and aggressive, I find myself moving all the time with heavies and assaults, mostly running. Well, that's a little bit of heat right there. That's a little bit of fusion heat right there before we do anything else. And that's not to say I don't stand still for a turn and zap you with everything. We're talking over the course, over the flow of the game. So right away, that's kind of interesting with heat, where mediums I tend to move, then stay, move, then stay, move, then stay. Your thoughts on that? But jumping into the large laser, I'm sacrificing a little bit of damage, but I'm also gaining heat. I'm sacrificing damage and I'm sacrificing heat. But you sacrifice heat, well, less heat, less damage, less heat. That allows me to, over the course of the game, fire more often. That allows me to be a little bit more aggressive, to try to control the heat, assuming I can keep tabletop glory in mind and not just try to zap you with everything, then like run up and kick you and punch you and all that crazy stuff. Having that discipline as a mech warrior, I find that the heavies and the assaults with the large lasers, it is a different flow. It is absolutely a different flow. But the key, of course, is this. PPC is still 10-10. Large laser is still 8-8. I need to be able to put myself tactically in a position where if I do have more longevity in terms of shooting every turn consistently, I need to be taking advantage of that battle value. As opposed to if I'm not taking advantage of it in that perspective tactically, but on the other side of the hex map, I've got a battle master occasionally firing off a PPC because of heat issues, or a marauder or a warhammer, they're still going to do better. Just even on that one-off firing, because they are firing. The key is to be able to fire. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. An interesting couple of neat little surprises with the Zeus Tactica vlog. And if you're coming to this channel looking through my archives sometime in the future, you can find that in the Battletech playlist. Interesting how when you explore a mech, different mech commanders, different mech warriors see it differently and utilize it differently. And for me, that's the true power of Battletech, because these machines are just not, this is 100% how you use it. There's things it might want to do if it's a dedicated mech like the longbow or say the archer. There's advantages with dual PPCs, the Marauder and the Warhammer. The Battlemaster wants to get up there, right? There are certain tacticas, yes, but there are many, many nuances to Battletech.